Amid the shock and horror of Russia's Ukraine invasion, many have sought to blame everything solely on Vladimir Putin. As international audiences try to make sense of the unthinkable scenes currently unfolding in the heart of Europe, it is convenient to believe that Putin has simply lost his mind. Before all this, SpaceX founder Elon Musk and the Russian leader were in talks over a possible collab in space matters. But in the recent past, the ground has shifted, and now Putin is on the receiving end. While the Russian ruler's well-documented Ukraine obsession has been instrumental in sparking the largest European conflict since World War II, his decision to invade Ukraine was entirely consistent with long-standing public statements and foreign policy goals that are enthusiastically embraced by a clear majority of Russians. Russian troops launched a wide-ranging attack on Ukraine as President Vladimir Putin cast aside international condemnation and sanctions and warned other countries that any attempt to interfere would lead to consequences you have never seen. World leaders decried the start of a long-anticipated invasion with far-reaching consequences as global financial markets plunged and oil prices soared. Russia's actions could cause massive casualties, topple Ukraine's democratically elected government, and upend geopolitics in Europe's post-Cold War security balance. The sanctions the United States and its European allies have imposed on Russia, which now include an American ban on Russian energy imports, are the most restrictive ever imposed against a major economic power. The speed with which they were put in place against a country whose economy ranks among the dozen largest in the world was remarkable. And Putin will likely tone down because, at the end of the day, he cannot stand alone. Russia is a major player in space exploration, and Musk is undoubtedly the single American nobody would want to cross if you need help accessing space stations. The sanctions are so strong that they were described as an all-out economic and financial war by Bruno Le Maire, the French economic minister, a comment so frank and potentially inflammatory that he immediately walked it back. The measures, which include sanctions targeting Russia's financial system, the wealth of influential individuals, and Russian fossil fuels, are designed to punish Vladimir Putin and the oligarchs who support and depend on him and hobble the Russian economy. They make it impossible to conduct normal business in Russia. In the short term, that means a massive economic slowdown. The Russian stock market has been shuttered since the invasion, and many Russian companies with shares listed abroad have seen their equity values all but wiped out. The Russian ruble, which plunged as the war began and sanctions were rolled out, is now near an all-time low. Barely a year ago, Musk invited Putin for a conversation on the Clubhouse. The Tesla CEO tagged the Kremlin's official account to ask if the Russian president would like to join him in a conversation on the audio-only app. "Would you like to join me for a conversation on Clubhouse?" Musk said in a tweet. He then followed up with a tweet in Russian which translates to, "It would be a great honor to talk to you." The Kremlin called Musk's invitation interesting, but added that it would need to know more details. In general, this is certainly a very interesting proposal, but we need to somehow understand what is meant, what is proposed exactly. So first, we will somehow check all of this, and then we will react. Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told journalists during a call. First, we want to get an understanding. You know that Putin does not use social networks. He personally does not manage them. Through his company SpaceX, Musk and Russia have shared some pleasant and unpleasant pasts. Back in 2014, a federal judge issued a preliminary injunction prohibiting any purchases of Russian rocket engines for the US. The concerns were raised by SpaceX, which was contesting the Air Force's multi-billion-dollar plan to purchase rocket cores from the company's main competitor, United Launch Alliance. In a complaint filed in the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, SpaceX noted that United Launch Alliance bought RD-180 rocket engines from a Russian state-controlled company, NPO Energomash. The company argued that the arrangement would benefit Russian Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin, who oversaw Russia's space effort and was on a list of officials targeted by economic sanctions arising from the Ukraine crisis. And that wasn't the only time Musk and Moscow clashed. In 2019, there was another conflict, this time involving NASA. You see, up in the International Space Station, the United States controls one half and Russia controls the other half. Like the US, Russia had one of its astronauts on board, and as a rule, 250 miles above Earth, collaboration is synonymous with consensus. Back then, as the US prepared to launch a new and somewhat risky mission, Russia hesitated before deciding whether it would endorse the project. In 2014, NASA awarded two companies, SpaceX and Boeing, multi-billion-dollar contracts to build the next generation of astronaut transportation. The United States previously relied on Russia to launch its astronauts to space since its space shuttle stopped flying in 2011 after 3 decades of operations. As the shuttles began new lives as museum displays, NASA turned to the private sector for help. The United States and Russia work together on the ISS along with 13 other countries. They share information on station operations, including the particulars of the SpaceX mission. During the 2014 mission, NASA officials said that while they had cleared SpaceX for launch, their counterparts at Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, had a dissenting opinion. The disagreement centered on the SpaceX capsule's approach to the ISS. Spacecraft that connect with the station are equipped with flight software that can prevent dangerous accidents. The SpaceX capsule, known as Crew Dragon, didn't have that configuration. Instead, it relied on redundant systems in its central computer system. NASA officials said that configuration was sufficient, while Russian officials weren't sold. The apprehension was understandable. A bungled approach would put the capsule, the ISS, or both at risk. Russia took a few days off to consider NASA's reasoning. Just days before blastoff, Roscosmos formally agreed to proceed with the launch and docking, and Musk and Moscow shook hands once again. Fast forward to today, the Ukrainian crisis is painting another picture. Russia and America are reading from different scripts. Around March 2021, Russia demanded an apology from the US after President Biden called Putin a killer. In an ABC News interview broadcast, Biden said, "I do," when asked if he believed the Russian president was a killer. He also described Putin as having no soul and promised he would pay the price for alleged Russian meddling in the 2020 US presidential election, something the Kremlin denied. But with time, it seems Biden has been vindicated, and now we wonder who should apologize to who. But if Russia wants to continue enjoying the support of NASA and SpaceX, Putin will have to apologize to both the organization and Mr. Musk. Otherwise, sanctions from America will cripple the Russian economy. Sanctions are a uniquely powerful foreign policy tool in American hands because so much of the world economy is conducted in US dollars and ultimately subject in some way to US law. Right now, Russia is feeling the full power of those choke points being turned off by the US and its allies. But sanctions power is so uniquely American that the US can go even against its putative allies' wishes, as the Trump administration did with Iran after it pulled out of the nuclear deal without leaving the rest of the world much recourse. In the coming weeks and months, Russian companies will have to adjust their operations to the reality of a shrunken economy and try to find ways to do business within the new constraints they face. Russia's economy will shrink 35% in the second quarter of 2022 and 7% for the entire year, JP Morgan estimates. Overall, the US bank expects the economic impact of sanctions on Russia's economy to be on par with the slowdowns it experienced in the financial crisis in 2008 or the COVID-19 pandemic. Russia is also dealing with additional complications, one being a wave of corporate withdrawals from its economy, reflecting executives' reluctance to be anywhere close to the red line of sanctions. And unlike in those earlier crises, large portions of the rest of the world are not acting to, say, rescue the global economy. Instead, the Western world is working in remarkable unison to punish Russia economically in the hope that waging war against Ukraine will ultimately become so expensive and ineffective that Putin will seek a negotiated end to his invasion. All the world awaits now is Putin's apology and withdrawal of troops. Until then, you should expect the likes of Musk to continue assisting Ukraine. And by the way, do you know China, a country that supports Russia in the ongoing feud, also has problems with Musk? Click on this link to find out more. In our upcoming features, we will be bringing you more videos on Musk's involvement in the Ukrainian conflict, so be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of them.